What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collector's Outpost. I am John. So one of my other favorite things are monster trucks. I love monster trucks. I love monster truck races and stuff like that. And Gravedigger is one of my favorite monster trucks. I actually got to meet Dennis Anderson when I was a kid at the Nassau Coliseum out in Long Island. I got my hat signed and I got to take some photos near the Gravedigger that I really wish I had. Who knows where those things went? It's such a shame. I wish I had those things. I do have a small collection of monster trucks, which is growing a little bit. Every time I go to Target, I seem to pick up a small monster truck. I just picked up this Gravedigger and I want to dirty up the tires. I'm not going to touch the body because it's just a classic and I really don't want to mess with it. Anyway, I'm going to take some sandpaper and we're just going to work down the tires a little bit. I'm going to sand them up, and really, if you wanted to do this, you could stop right at sanding, because as the trucks drive, they do wear down the treads a little bit and they do kind of get more of this gray, as you can see here, more of that color. And if that's where you want to stop, absolutely stop right there. There is 100% no correct way of doing any of this. If you want to keep them pristine and shiny, keep them like that, like they just came out of the shop. If you want to just kind of, tear up the treads like I'm doing here and stop, then do that. I want to take it just another step, and the sanding is actually going to help the paint to stay on there a little bit more. So I'm going to use some burnt sienna, some snow titanium white, and cocoa bean. Why? Because this is just the paints I have laying around. I'm just going to make it work. Now, as I'm doing this, you're going to notice that I'm going to do this in a couple of different layers, 3 actually. The first layer is going to be a much lighter color, because when mud dries, it does turn a little bit more on the lighter side. And you can actually see that in a bunch of photos. Here's them clean, here's them really muddy, here's very little mud on there, here's a very dry mud, here's a different mud. So they do tend to change tones. So you want to add a couple of different tones, and what I'm going to do is add the dry one as if it's been sitting on the tires for a while first, and then I'll add a little bit more of that burnt sienna kind of color over that, and then on top of that I'm going to add more of a wet looking brown, which is going to be that cocoa bean color. Now, these are, again, not definitive colors. You can kind of work your own colors, you can mix your own colors, you can go to the store and find very specific pre-mixed colors. It doesn't matter. Just if you want it to look a little bit more realistic, like the mud has dried, start with a lighter color, then a slightly darker one with maybe a little bit more saturation, and then add a darker, really deep, wet looking color on top of that. Now you can definitely see what's happening here. So that first layer is already looking really kind of dried, and it's like been sitting there for a while. And don't be uniform, but just kind of splotch it on. Mud does what it wants, it goes wherever it wants, it builds up in certain spots, it's less in other spots. Just when you're doing this, remember that the mud will kind of also go around the sides of the tires, not just in the middle of the treads. So this is definitely one of those weathering jobs that you don't really have to be careful, but just don't overdo it. But even if you did overdo it, who's to say that's not what it was supposed to look like? It's just mud. Mud does what it wants to do. It splatters wherever it splatters, and that's just that. Now I'll just let this video play out a little bit so you can just watch this without me yapping over it. And also, I kind of like this song, so I'm just gonna let it play.
Let the good times roll. Down, we'll never come down. When the sun comes up, we'll be feeling how we do right now. My heart's on fire, coming down to the wire. While the world sleeps, we'll keep burning brighter and brighter. Me and you, nothing to do. These days they come and go. Me and you, nothing to lose. I feel it in my soul. So let's let the good times.
Hey, I'm back. So, do keep in mind, when tires are spinning, especially when it has fresh, wet mud on it, it's gonna splatter everywhere. So I'm gonna add some of that paint onto the chassis here. Now, I'm not gonna add it to the body, even though I know it should splatter up onto the body itself. I just love this paint job and wanna see it and don't wanna touch it. So now we're gonna go one shade darker to that more fresh mud look. Well, we're just gonna pile this on in the treads a little bit on the sides. Again, there is no definitive pattern. Maybe they went through some mud and it just left a splotch here. Maybe yours will go through a mud bog and this whole thing is just gonna be brown. Maybe on your version, you'll put all of this paint on and then you'll take some sandpaper and just kind of back it off the top of the treads a little bit, and it would look a little bit more like this photo on the screen now. Again, the cool part about this is it's all up to you. You can do as much or as little or none of this at all. Oh man, I'm looking at this as I'm going, and honestly, I am loving the results of this. Now, do you see what I'm saying? That this darker, more wet brown, this cocoa bean color, is looking like more fresh mud, and the stuff under it looks like it's been there, I don't know, maybe a couple hours or maybe a day or so. It really adds so much dimension and depth into the reality of what's going on with these tires at a race. I'm really digging all of this. And again, you could always grab some sandpaper and kick back the top of the treads if you want to take some of this off. But also, keep in mind, the chassis, some of that mud is going to splatter up onto the chassis. And don't forget about the side of the tires and the rims. You know, there's going to be little splatters and everything kind of all over the place. So this is my little monster truck collection. It's building. However, that Superman one has been in my collection for like 20 years. And yeah, that's a Mandalorian monster truck on the left. All right, my friends, that is about it. I just wanted to do something a little bit different on the channel. I hope you enjoyed the weathering of the tires of the Gravedigger. I know there's a lot of monster truck fans out there because anytime I post anything about monster trucks or Gravedigger, I always get a whole bunch of comments or DMs how much you guys love monster trucks or that you're going to a monster truck rally soon or anything. Anyway, drop on down below, hit that like, subscribe, and notification button for upcoming videos, and I will see you all on the next video. Be safe and kind out there in the world. See ya.